And we have some more clickbait. Clickbait. I do love clickbait. The media certainly loves clickbait. What's good, my fellow peasants? How you all doing? So this is a video topic I've wanted to do for a while, talking about release date versus game quality. Now, should a game take as long as possible, as long as it reaches its full maximum potential? Should it be delayed, pushed back, whatever is required, just to make sure it is as good as it can be? And I've heard this said a lot about the 7 remake. A lot of people say I'm happy for it to take till 2019, 2020, 2022, Square Enix, whatever it takes, as long as you don't fuck it up. Some people said this about FF15. I was happy, some people say I was happy for it to take another year. If it meant we had got all those cutscenes, the ones they were trying to rush out in the DLCs, if it had been fully fleshed out, there's quite a lot of people with that reasonable mindset. But I'd also say that I think the majority don't. The majority, most definitely, all they care about is getting it as quickly as possible, and they will rant and they will rave when it's not coming out soon enough, and if they're not having a new title every 4 or 5 years. And that's kind of how it's becoming now, that we're only getting, especially in Final Fantasy, a new title every 4, 5, even 6 years. And I kind of get that. I understand. Do I want to only play a new FF every 6 years? Hell nah. When we were once, very spoiled as a fan base, when we used to get fantastic masterpiece titles like 7, 8, 9, 10, and they only had about a year, 2 years max in between each release. We were once upon a time a very spoiled fan base, so I understand it. But now in this new era of HD AAA games, Square Enix are slow. They are slow without a doubt. And, it is slower for RPGs in general than, say, a new Call of Duty or Battlefield game which gets pumped out every year. An RPG, for obvious reasons, takes longer to develop. But do I think 5 or 6 years is an acceptable timeline? I still think it's way too slow. And it's really relevant now because there's so much shitty clickbait flooding the news. I'm going to quickly cover this. In Square Enix's latest fiscal report, they announced that the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Kingdom Hearts 3, and the Marvel IP. Notice how all these shitty articles and news outlets, they forgot to mention that. They forgot to mention the Marvel IP. And I know why they didn't do it, because it didn't fit their narrative. It wouldn't be controversial. If they put KH3 in 7 Remake, oh god, that is controversial. It's simply not inflammatory enough. It won't get people clickbaiting, and it won't mislead them in the clear ways that these articles are trying to mislead people. And it's worked. This is the funny thing. I've had about 100 people in the last 2 days messaging me saying, oh my god, Pez, 7 Remake's not coming until 2020, confirmed. What do you think about this? No, confirmed. Oh. And I've also had a lot of frustrated people saying, well, I'm done now. I'm done with Square Enix now that they've told us 7 Remake's not coming until 2020. I'm done. And KH3. I've been waiting too long for these. This isn't what this news is misleading. That isn't what is happening. All of that simply is that the Marvel IP KH3 and 7 Remake will be released in the next 3 years or so. So all 3 of those titles will be out in the next 3 years or so. And a lot of people picked up on the or so and felt like that was some sort of disrespect. Oh my god, look at the way they disrespect us by saying or so. It's simply a disclaimer, a standard disclaimer, that if anything, it's for the Marvel IP. The Marvel IP is still in its very early days. They've only recently just collabed, or we heard about it 6 months ago. That is going to be the back-end title. And yes, if that takes 4 years, how can they say these will be guaranteed in the next 3 years when it could be 4 years? So they're not going to give solid, these will be in the next 3 years. That's just standard. So the reason why people have got totally the wrong end of the stick is it's simply not true that KH3 and FF7 aren't coming until 2020. Just because it says that, it doesn't mean all 3 titles are going to land in 2020. That would be ridiculous. Square Enix have said that they're never going to release more than one, or they're never going to aim to release more than one AAA big budget game in a year. And there's obviously logical reason for that. They want every fiscal year to look just as healthy, for their shareholders, to show consistency, to show progress. So they're always going to stagger it like that. The idea that we was ever going to get KH3 and 7 Remake in the same fiscal year was insane. But this is the thing, we're talking fiscal years here. People seem to confuse fiscal years with a normal year. They're totally different things. So that's point number one. What Square Enix's fiscal year runs, to and from, is different. It doesn't give us any kind of indication when these are going to come out. But even if we just talk in generic years, just to make this simple. So what we know is that they're going to release all 3 of these in the next 3 years. So that's more or less a dead set guarantee of what we already knew. Already knew this. They're going to release each of these titles in separate years. So, what's going to come first in 2018? Well, we don't really know. It could be FF7 Remake. It could be Kingdom Hearts 3. At this point, I have no idea which they're going to release first. I'd like to think, or I'd personally like to think it's FF7 Remake. I kind of think it is 7 Remake from what I've heard of Kingdom Hearts 3, though I've not followed its development so closely. It seems to be a bit more further afield than what 7 Remake is. They seem to be putting a lot more time, effort, and really pushing this, what with the ramped up recruitment. Where we've heard it's in its, certain areas are getting finalised. So yeah, I really think 7 Remake is going to be the 2018 release, which will simply mean KH3 will be 2019. There's no way they're going to release those in the same year. And then the Marvel IP was always going to be the 2020. Because yeah, we've only just recently heard about it. They're working with Marvel for the first time. Or at least I think it's the first time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the first time. So that's going to be the back in 2020. So we knew this. This is a totally non-point. So why so many people getting worked up, I have no idea. But going back onto what I was saying about quality versus release date. The more I've thought about this, the more complicated the matter becomes. Because I've had thoughts on this in the past. But when I really sit down and think about it, and this is what I think most gamers don't do, it doesn't actually make sense. So, we are tired of delays. We are tired of having games announced to us that are still 4 or 5 years away. So I've been seeing this a lot. Square Enix, stop announcing games too early. Now, I thought that was a good idea in my head. Yeah, just stop announcing them so early. Stop getting us excited for something that is still ages off. And Versus 13 was another example of that. If you'd have never shown us Versus 13, a project that you barely had even started, we would have had none of this FF15 drama. We would have had no people ranting about Versus 13. I preferred Stella. I've been waiting for this game for 10 years. It's been 10 years in development, which again is another misleading statement. None of it would have happened if you simply didn't announce it so damn early. Now that all sounds well and good, and that would resolve a lot of the issues, but when I thought about it, they can't do that. How can Square Enix do that? It would sink them as a company. Let's say they did what we are suggesting. They only told us about a game a year before its release, and we had a year hype up period, and it was closer to the finishing goal mark, so Square Enix, was sure at this point. Nothing could come along. A big FF14 MMO couldn't flop. The company nearly going under. No console generation shifts in which they more or less have to go back to the drawing board. These were all things that caused Versus 13 to more or less be scrapped and or delayed. And thanks to Game Explain for this video in the background. But like I said, it wouldn't work because their portfolio would be barren. It would be totally barren because what they tell shareholders, and what shareholders invest in, and what they're supposed to have company confidence in, is exactly the same information to us. Everything they give to shareholders is public information, so they have to have a portfolio that has something in it. And if Square Enix only told us about a title a year before it came out, there would be years where they had nothing on the horizon and shareholders would have nothing to invest in. And I know some people hate this kind of discussion because video games shouldn't be, shouldn't be about money. Square Enix shouldn't be a company. No, they shouldn't be in it for shareholders. They should be in it for us, the gamer. It's a nonsense argument. Of course, they're a company. They have to make money. That's the only way we get funding for these damn games. It's a whole damn cycle. I think gamers are so obsessed sometimes at being the primary focus, and Square Enix shouldn't give a shit about making money and doing things that make money, like collaborations, for example. Collaborations, DLCs, bonuses, pre-order bonuses, I mean, and remakes and remasters and ports and mobile games, and there's that portion of the fan base who will just rant about that. Cash grabs, money whores, yada yada. And of course it's a nonsensical mindset. We do need the money and that requires shareholders, and let's just look at July 2015. It wouldn't have had FF7 Remake in it which also, by the way, when that released, Square Enix's stock holdings saw a 10 to 15% instant uptake. Instant. That's crazy. They wouldn't have had that. They wouldn't have even had FF15 in their portfolio. No, I don't even know if they would have had Dragon Quest. No, they wouldn't have even had Dragon Quest 11. They wouldn't have had... Insert any other title that you like. None of those would have been in their portfolio. None of them. And can you imagine what that would have done for shareholder confidence? When they look at Square Enix's portfolio and it's got next to fuck all in it, who's going to invest in that? Absolutely no one. And Square Enix's stock, rather than seeing the 10 to 15% uptake, it would have plummeted. So they have to do that, and it's important because this was even the reason why Square Enix is still alive today, while we have Final Fantasy. When Squaresoft were sinking into the ground after their Spirits Within flop and all the other issues, the reason why they got themselves out of that mess was by bulking up a portfolio. They put 9 in it, they put 10 in it, they put 11 in it, they even started putting 12 in it. And they did, they put them all in their portfolio, and that's how they came back from the brink. Now, admittedly, 3 of those titles did come out in a timely fashion. FF12 was supposed to come out in 2003, it then got pushed back to 2006, but shareholders don't care about that. They don't really necessarily care about the release date as long as they can see that the company is going somewhere, that they have an outlook and they can see the kind of titles that are coming out. Well, okay, they need to announce these games early. I'll just say, the obvious solution in all of this is, of course, that Square Enix pulled their thumb out their arse a bit and they sort out their development cycles, but that's just a hopeful scenario. Well, we can say that until the cows come home, we all know it. So then once I'd locked that down into my brain, I thought, okay, so I get why Square Enix have to do this. So why don't they just be more upfront and honest with us? Why don't they just tell us, no, this is a early concept trailer, this is still 4 or 5 years off. Again, the reason why I don't think that would work is it would still do the same things. All the while that shareholders don't know when a title's coming out. It could come out any time. There would be no real reason for them to invest, necessarily, if it's still that far off. But the bigger reason why that doesn't work is being upfront and honest. Is how can they do that? And this comes into release dates. I see a lot of people say they should tell us the release dates earlier. But when a game is still 3 or 4 years off, how in any way can Square Enix give an accurate release date? Even when it's a year off or 6 months off. Because the QA stage is definitely a stage where issues creep out the woodwork. And we saw that with 15, and we actually heard about some of the issues that crept out, with the bugs and the glitches, and things they weren't anticipating. And that's why it got pushed back. It's only until you get close to that final stage that you're going to have any kind of an accurate view of when this game could actually release. So yeah, I understand why Square Enix don't do that. And I know I'm coming across as a Square Enix fanboy right here, or that I'm somehow defending them. I just want to say, if you've not seen my other videos, I've criticised them in many areas. But this is one thing I can understand, why they can't give that release date so early. Because it will just be inaccurate and they will just miss it. And no, indeed, that is another thing that then pisses fans off. And this is the contradiction where I think us fans are responsible. We badger Square Enix for a release date. I remember 5 trailers for FF15 that came out before the Uncovered event. Every single one of those trailers, the comment section was spammed with, oh my fucking god, no release date, I'm done, I give up, just tell us a release date already. And there were people screaming in every single trailer, we want a release date. But then they give us a release date that is fan pressured to be given because they really want it, and then they inevitably miss it, and people get just as then equally mad at that. Oh my god, it's delayed, you told us this release date, now it's delayed 2 months, and those same people will rant and rave. And that's the contradiction right there. You badger Square Enix for a release date as early a stage as possible, aka when they don't know whether they're going to be able to meet this date, and then complain when they don't meet it. So I don't see any way that they can appease the fan base with this. Either way, there's going to be people who are pissed off. But we're talking about the gaming community here. Someone's going to always be pissed off at something. What I would say is that's a portion, it's not all of us. I'd actually say I was fairly impressed with the Final Fantasy fan base when FF15 got delayed 2 months and Tabata came out and he did that really apologetic video. That video had an 80% like ratio and the comments was full of an overwhelming number of supportive messages. Totally understand. Thank you so much for the honesty, the openness, and there is this very reasonable side to the fan base. Like I said, when people say, I'm happy for it to take as long as it will take. If you need another year, let us know. But that's the other thing, another year. I think like something like 7 Remake, because it's not been in development for, well, it has, that's the thing, it's been in since 2015. And we're informed that it had been getting worked on 2 years prior to that. So it's already been in development for, yeah, nearly 4 years. So if this does come in 2018, that's still nearly a 5-year dev cycle. But I think something like 7 Remake could get away with another year delay if they needed it. I think with FF15 it couldn't. Oh my goodness, there's no way they could have delayed FF15 another year. There's some people who say it, but it just simply couldn't. I think I would have even started to give up with it at that point. The 2-month delay, yeah, that was fine, but with the reputation that had accrued and the fact that if it had been pushed back another year, it would have, taken over Duke Nukem as the longest game ever and, really fucked up Square Enix's reputation even more. There's no way that game could have got away with an extra year delay. So my stance on this is you can push a release date back, Square Enix. You can take your time with it. I think, in most circumstances, again, I think FF15 was way too niche. I totally understand why that had a contracted date. No, FF15 got this must be out in 2016, no questions asked. And I understand why Square Enix put that, post, that flag in the sand. And the amount of pressure that was for Tabata, he needed another year on that. I understand that. In most every other case, I have seen that the fan base is reasonable enough to understand delays, to want it to be delayed if it means it's going to be at its absolute finest quality. That's what FF15 clearly showed, is that when you tell us about it and you explain to us the reasons why. With Tabata, he clearly said this is 2 months so we can do this, this and this. If you explain it to us, that's when the fan base ain't going to be pissed off. That's when we're going to understand. That is when we will cut you some damn slack, Square Enix. That's when it won't piss people off so badly. So I definitely think there can be some better communication. But I do think on behalf of us as a fan base, we need to stop badgering for that release date. We need to stop pushing for it, getting so incensed by it. I definitely think we need to stop falling for stupid shit like this. Where dumbass articles just jump on the bandwagon and don't even understand basic fiscal year reports. And I'm not saying that, Final Fantasy 7 Remake is going to be 2018 or KH3. Yeah, perhaps they will be delayed. With 7 Remake, it could be 2019 now. And the reason I say that is there has been news lately, rounding this video out, that has set my trigger alarm off a bit, has set my warning signals off. And it's the news that it's had a completely different change in direction in terms of game development. Now this could be pretty concerning or it could not. Again, it's that thing about assumption, jump into conclusions. So I talked about Hamaguchi, how he was coming on board as the development leader. And I spoke about why that was a good idea. And also spoke about why they were bringing on more staff. And I said, we don't know the reasons why. Don't jump to conclusions. Well, now I think we have a clear-cut explanation of why, and it's this right here. Basically, what has happened is Square Enix have flipped their business model to doing everything internally. An internal business structure and quality structure where they want to handle everything in-house. Now, there's a side to me that goes, yes, fantastic. Square Enix relying too heavily on external companies has not always been a good thing, and there has been times it's caused delays. So working with external companies hasn't always been a good thing, and we've even had cases where Square Enix passed work over the fence, then it got back. And this is the thing, Square Enix are perfectionists, regardless of what you think. They are perfectionists. There are so many times they've pushed back titles, delayed them, or gone back and tweaked them again because they didn't feel that it was quite up to scratch. And there were times where external companies passed work back over and they've gone nope, and they've gone back to the drawing board. But now we have this news that Square Enix are doing away with that. They're doing away with working with external companies. I mean, they probably still will, but they're looking to keep it down to a minimum. They're looking to shift from a corporation with external studios to a purely internal focus. Hamaguchi says that as for the whole story behind this shift, it's a sensitive topic. Now, that's what worries me. Now, the company that was working on the 7 Remake was CyberConnect 2. And they're now off the job. So they were partners on this. They haven't really told us why, just that it's a sensitive subject. And that means that something didn't go right. Some sort of falling out has been made, and that's why I'm concerned. But just finishing off, the company has decided to shift to internal setup, including mass production and quality, because we want to control everything including quality, on a stable schedule. So yeah, that goes hand in hand with what I just said. Sometimes it's the external companies that cause the issues, but now it makes 152.365% more sense why they are mass recruiting, why they are urgently hiring as many people as possible, because they're doing it all internal. So that's why they're ramping up recruitment. I knew there was more to the story. I knew more would come out. We still don't have the full picture, but this could be a fantastic move. You know, there's some people even flipping out about this. If Square Enix are doing this all internally, you know, and control everything in terms of quality, so it's at their, you know, perfectionist level, and we can argue whether they're perfectionists. I believe they are. I'm not going to get into the debate. There's going to be some people, Final Fantasy died before 10, everything after 10 is shit. I'm not going to get into the debate. It's pointless, it's subjective. The more important thing I'm looking at is the on a more stable schedule. Now, we'll see if they're going to meet that. We'll see if they can actually uphold that. But so this could be great, but on the other side, while I'm a bit concerned, it is whether this has been a dramatic breakup. Something that has caused a bit of internal controversy, and we have to ask ourselves all kinds of questions. What does this mean? Does this mean that CyberConnect 2 are no longer going to be, you know, giving out the assets that they've worked on? Without a doubt, now that they're going to be doing this shift, there's going to be a halt in the, you know, development process while they do the handover and while they do these recruiting. And once they've done that recruiting, they're going to have to hire people up. You know, does this mean that CyberConnect 2, everything that they developed, you know, they've now scrapped and Square Enix no longer have the rights to it? Because if they are no longer partners on this project and they don't want CyberConnect's name on the title, they're not going to be able to use any of their work. But again, perhaps they will purchase everything that was done. Perhaps it's not that messy breakup. We just don't know the story. So this breakup could mean that a significant portion of FF7 Remake's development is now scrapped. Could range from anything from being catastrophic to a good, effective move. That means we're going to get this sooner. There's no way to know. But the reason I did this video and talking about, you know, why Square Enix walk a very tightrope, and why I talked about shareholders and release dates, is to implore people to look at all sides of things. So many people are so quick to just jump to the most negative conclusion, and needless to say, even with this CyberConnect breakup, I bet there's going to be media stories coming out where they're going to be painting it as a big drama. How the 7 Remake's biggest external company has now just been dropped in a dramatic, sensitive breakup, and, you know, the 7 Remake's in the firing line for all kinds of shit. And, you know, again, the articles about it not coming out until 2020 just because in a fiscal report it said 3 years or so. It's all just bluster, it's all just clickbait, it's all misleading, it's all just jumping to conclusions. In fact, that 2020 3 years or so isn't even jumping conclusions, that's just sheer fucking stupidity. I mean, that's just them being dumb motherfuckers. I mean, I don't know if they're being dumb or if they're just doing it on purpose. It's probably the latter, to write inflammatory headlines like that. These 3 titles are going to be released in the next 3 years or so. The obvious takeaway from that is that they're all going to be released in year breaks. Not that all 3 are going to be released in 2020. I mean, I'm going to give... I don't think there's anyone who writes articles who could be truly that dense. So I think they are just doing it just to wind people up. It's definitely worked, and all I would say, guys, is just calm down. It doesn't really mean anything, but screw it. You guys get the message. You guys understand. I empathise. I can see 2 sides. I can empathise with Square Enix in many areas, whereas most people can't, because they don't choose to objectively, you know, look at the situation and what's realistic. I also understand why Square Enix get a lot of bombardment and hate when it's just things that are taken out of context, when it's just shitty clickbait articles that are causing this extra Square Enix hate. There seems to be like a real trend right now, and even me just saying this, that I empathise with Square Enix and that I still have faith in them as a developer, even that will get me slammed. There's people in the comment section who give me hate for that. But like I said, it's because I'm objective. If you just rant about Square Enix at every single thing, you're nothing but a hack at that point. You're just a hack. And you're just trying to bash, and there's no logic to your bashing. I will bash them in the areas where they deserve to be bashed, and I've certainly done it in the past. I think sometimes people haven't seen those videos where I've gone ranting at them. I've bashed them on some of their events. I've bashed them on some of their internal decisions. I've bashed them on some of their game decisions. I've bashed them on some of their sales tactics. And I totally understand why fans have the right to be concerned. I'm not saying you should be concerned. I think Square Enix have more than dug their own damn grave giving fans the right to be concerned. When we see dramas like this unfolding with the 7 remake, that could mean one thing, could mean the other. Do some fans have the right to jump to the instant concern? Yeah, I think Square Enix have caused that. I thought they brought themselves upon that. I think some of the factors they couldn't help and were out of their control, but I've covered that in previous videos. There it is on the table. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until the next video.